a lot of the things that happen, that I do with my work now, happened as a result of an accident. I tear a piece, throwing it up, and oh my God, and then I look at it and I think, oh, that's pretty neat. Maybe I can take advantage. You know, I made a mistake, something's happened. Maybe I can take advantage of that. The other part was that I never decorated with a brush, like painting designs or decorating per se. My use of brush work now on my decorating is always splashes of color. I can make a very good argument that of the amount of control that Jackson Pollock had on making those paintings. No question that they were not accidental. They're highly, highly controlled paintings.
What do you mean by control there?
He will decide on a certain pattern of movement that he wants in this painting. And if you want him to, he can repeat that again. Mm-hmm. I taught this to a student of mine, a high school student, farm boy. He was in 11th grade, I think. His father had a nice dairy farm, and his father had to have the piping system all changed because the barn had lead pipe in it. And I had given my students, this was still down in this little village in New York State, we were working in metals and using some silver and doing a little bit of some odd casting and things. And so he had all this lead that he could melt. He had a little thing, a torch and stuff at home he could melt them. And we were pouring melted silver initially, and later melted lead, into water. And we discovered that I knew he could do that. I knew this would happen, but he discovered that we could control the sort of shapes that he got out of that bucket of water by pouring. He could control the temperature of the water, and he could control the temperature of the lead, the melted lead. He could control how he put it in the water. Did he just drizzle it in the water, or did he throw it in the water? Mm-hmm. Was there a lot of lead and a small amount of water, or a little bit of lead and a lot of water? And he learned to control these things. You got these totally amorphous forms, but he had 5 different kinds of shape that he could make. And he was so excited about this. And he would say, "Do you want one of those? I'll make the brother to this one." And he could make any of those 5 shapes. So not exactly, but it was the same thing. Cousins of the ones that were made before. And Jackson Pollock's painting, if he decided how high he stood up on that ladder. And how did he swing his arm? And did he throw it at it, or did he drizzle it off his stick? Mm-hmm. And there are all kinds of ways to control these, what look like accidental things happening. Now, there's nothing quite like that I'm doing today in my pottery. Okay. I will do some sculptural things. These came from some frozen clay.
Frozen clay. Mm-hmm.
And when a bag of clay, my clay comes in a bar about 5.5 inches square and a foot long. Mm-hmm. And if it comes in the winter time and it's not in a heated truck, it freezes. And I got this whole shipment of clay one year that had gotten frozen. The trucker made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And So, and I was really, really angry. I called my supplier in Ontario, and he said to me, well, what do you want to do about it? I said, I'll send it back to you if you want it. I'm not going to. Well, he didn't want it back. He didn't want to pay for the shipping. The shipping costs him more than it would to make the clay. So he just sent me more clay, and this stuff sat there. And, I guess it was maybe 4 years ago. I was in the studio, and I hauled one of these boxes. And I had at times before it had gotten clay that had gotten too hard. What happens with clay when it freezes is that then when it thaws, all of the water that made the clay nice and plastic and malleable migrates to the surface, and you have this muddy and slush on the outside. It's only about that thick. And then also in the freezing and thawing, these fissures develop within the clay itself. So if you can wrench apart a chunk of that clay, it'll come apart in an irregular sort of fashion. Mm-hmm. So in this one here, for example, I was cutting off the ends of these blocks of clay. I would cut off 1.5 to a 2-inch thick piece of clay, which was then about 5.5 inches square. And then I would start a cut and then start pulling it apart. And this is what was happening when I pulled it apart.
Interesting.
You can see that this little piece here came out of this thing here, and this would fit into that hollow in there. Mm-hmm. And so that was a discovery. So then I got very excited, and I made a lot of them.
So this is an example of the kind of
accidental.
Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of my other forms that I've worked with over the years, and this tearing of the rims of pots, arose out of accidents on the wheel, or accidents on something falling over or getting bumped against a piece that I've just made. And then think, I could do something with that, and pushing it around a little bit. A curious thing that has happened, and I've noticed it a lot even since I've been here just selling out of my house. When I had the gallery, I wasn't often in. I would be in the gallery an hour in the middle of the day and maybe again in the evening, but I wasn't often there, so I didn't see a lot of the people who came in and bought things from the gallery during the summer. But now, of course, I see everybody who comes in. And people have said to me, who don't know me at all, "Oh, your work is so architectural." And I'm still kind of I'm wondering why do they say that? I mean, they don't know that I studied architecture, and I don't do many rectangular pots or pieces of sculpture even. Mm-hmm. I do some rectangular pieces of sculpture.
Which is what most people would mean when they say architectural.
Well, I would think, and I've had people who say this who are artists or who are shopkeepers or farmers, maybe, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I've had particularly this summer, I've had several people that I thought, where did they ever come up with that?
Are those comments, you take note of them, are they useful to you in your work? Is it useful for you to hear people commenting on your work?
Oh, sure. Useful?
Useful in the sense of, does it affect your process? Does it make you go do something differently, or?
Probably not, unless they say something about it that tweaks something in my mind. And I thought, that's interesting. Maybe I could play around. It wouldn't be something suggesting that I make something, but something they say maybe about the work, or I thought that was a so-and-so or something. And that can happen.
So you would almost never exactly implement a suggestion some customer made, but it might make something else.
Yes, exactly. And this is so many times an idea any one idea that you come up with then frequently generates any number of offshoots from that basic idea, and I think that's what has led to a wide variety or a wider variety of work that I have made. An accidental happening, or I make something and then I see the possibility of that being a whole lot of other things, but not that same thing.
So accidents aren't always good in the sense that they're keepers. Yeah.
Huh? Oh no.
Accidents are not keepers.
No.
Yeah.
And the piece, yeah. But if one does, and then if one is, you think, oh, it is, then you begin, can I duplicate that without making it look overworked? Can I repeat that accident again? Can I repeat an accident, which is a unique event, but can I somehow repeat that or duplicate that?
And you don't mean by that, you don't mean to replicate it exactly.
No.
You mean to do the thing again.
Do that thing, yes.
As a sort of exploration.
Yes, sure, yeah. And so tearing, and I was talking about not decorating with a brush and so forth. For a long time, I decorated with broken sticks and unbroken sticks. Hitting a pot, either when it's very soft with a stick or when it's fairly firm with a stick, or taking a broken off stick and drawing in it. And I called this kind of three-dimensional calligraphy. And it had that sense of it. It was like a wonderful calligraphic brushstroke by a good Japanese calligrapher, or Chinese calligrapher. But instead just tearing into the surface of the clay. And in that process it's soft enough, and you're then distorting the roundness of the piece. And that was very prominent in a lot of my work since the 70s, mid-70s.
So in the process of making the thing, you are making something other than what you planned to.
I'm making a container form that I will then do something to.
Okay. But you don't, how much planning is involved? I mean, do you make sketches of things that you're going to create, or do you just start in?
I sketch a lot. I don't sketch actual pots very much, but I sketch forms in a book to play around with proportions. You
keep sketchbooks and take them with you everywhere you go.
Oh yeah, and they're so disorganized. I was looking at some sketchbooks that went back to I don't know, back to the 60s probably the other day. Oh yes, for sure, yeah. And every now and again I'll go and look back through them, and I remember just one thing in particular. One at some point in one of my sketchbooks, I made this little ink drawing about 1.5 inches square, in a square, of a kimono. And I came back from my first vacation in Mexico, came back the end of January of '94, and I was trying to decide what to do. I couldn't get started back to work, and it took a couple of weeks at home, just kind of acclimating back to back to being home, and just kind of dreaming about my holiday in Mexico. We'd been there for a month, and then I wanted to get back in my studio then, and I kept saying, what to do? I always like to know what I'm going to do when I walk in my studio that day, usually. And
so by what you're going to do, you mean you're going to make a container?
I'm going to make this shape or that shape, or this big ones or little ones, or slab-built pieces, or on the wheel, or whatever. Just so that I don't go in there and get all in a flap over, oh, what am I going to do today?